Welcome, 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 everyone. I have Marty Latman here today, Mr. Networking, someone who I'm
Oh,
still learning from. But before we get started, I did do a post this week. Many of you, if you looked at your LinkedIn profile, you know that I'm a Giants fan, and I promised if the Giants won, that I would be wearing my jersey on Zoom calls this week. Now, technically, this is not a Zoom call; it's on StreamYard. But in the interest of standing up for myself and the Giants, go Giants. So apologies to those of you who were fans of other teams, but this is kind of um, one of our glory things. So Marty and I wanted to talk about networking, and the timing I think is really great because we actually had our first in-person networking event last week in Wayne, New Jersey, and I can tell you, and I'm sure Marty can, there was such an energy in the room, wouldn't you say?
yeah, most definitely. There's nothing like having live meetings. Your adrenaline really rushes. It's really great to get back together.
Okay, I have shout out to my son who's actually watching this from Cambridge. Go Giants and go Marty. And we go fly Eagles fly. So you know what? We're this is one of those things, and I see Abby's just joining the stream right now. We were just talking, Abby, about the Giants and about how in-person networking. Marty and I had our first in-person networking event on Wednesday night, and it was such an energy in the room. And actually, Marty, we've had in-person networking events, the diners, and we've met a few times, the different diners. And I think that was the first time I saw Alex and I saw Christine and everyone. It was such a great feeling, wasn't it?
Oh, it was just it's there's nothing like getting together, especially with these networking events, and after being isolated for so long, it just makes it even better now that we all get together. Hey,
So,
Ab, how we doing?
Abby,
Hi,
I
how
know
are you?
now. I know you're down in Florida, Abby, but do you ever go out and do anything in person now, or is it still pretty much all virtual?
Um, I just go out to eat. I don't do any networking down here.
Really?
Too much to do, too much going on right now. So yeah, just go out to eat and see family and enjoy Florida. That's what I'm doing.
Good for you.
Good
That's
for
Yeah.
you.
that's great.
All right, and I do have to agree about. I was actually rooting for the Detroit Lions this year too to make the playoffs over Seattle because they've been through as pretty much as rough a spot as anyone. I will tell you what I loved about networking. I loved being able to see people and listen to them and be in the room. And I think if you're afraid to go networking now in person, just got to give it a shot because there's very little to lose by it.
Well,
Definitely, I would agree. Um, if you
So
can, yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't be afraid of it. Just if you're afraid of it, just wear your mask.
okay,
that's really it.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think one of the questions, so just to let Dan know, the information we have in northern New Jersey, we do an event the second Wednesday of the month at the Wayne Library. And if you go to mynetworkingcentral.com, you'll see other events there too. But above all, just ask us because I think you CIT actually tried to go in person and they couldn't do it. Now,
Right
Marty,
now, it's virtual. Right
now
now,
you have
it's virtual for a little while. We'll see what happens on
now you have your Fang and Sen groups.
that.
Are they going to be meeting in person again or not?
Well, I'm looking to possibly go back to in-person meetings during March. The issue that a lot of networking groups have experienced when
Hmm.
they used to meet live, and we've been out so long, the facilities that they used to use for their meetings are no longer accessible to them. So a lot of people are running around right now trying to find new places to hold meetings.
So what are some of the things you would suggest if you're networking, whether it's online here or in an in-person event? Are there things that have changed, let's say the last couple of years or so with networking? Or is it pretty much some of the basics we've talked about before?
It's the basics. It still hasn't changed really. Um, when we do it on these type of platforms, the only thing that's changed is um, the tools to use it. But networking is networking. Be yourself. Okay, what I tell people. And what happens, you find out a lot of things through the networking meetings. Um, when you have the live meetings, it really influences to have a really good dialogue among individuals. And you can have your small breakout groups to, find out in depth really what other people are doing and what's their current status, etc.
And this is a good point. A lot of the groups now have actually expanded in reach, and there's a lot of people that joined the groups during the pandemic that can't go in person. Um, and I know I struggled with this, with whether I was going to do a hybrid group or not. And I just decided this is a good session here for virtual, but you want to do something in person. And I wonder if that's something that groups are struggling with as much as anything else. Like, do we close down the relationships we had as opposed to going back in person?
Well, the way that I've seen it down in Princeton, Dave Shuckman's group, the PSG of Mercer, they started doing hybrid,
Hmm.
where they have some people in the library and the other people they have uh, via the computer. And my conversations with Dave is that he's in the process of really evaluating it right now. There is, when you do it hybrid, there's a difficulty, I believe, where you have both people in the physical location and people still on the computer. I would see that hybrid could possibly work if you have people in one place and you have a speaker who's coming in virtually, or you have a speaker in one place and you have everybody else virtually. But to have it mixed where you have some people live, some people virtual, speaker, whatever you want to do it, it's not congenial enough to really, in my mind, have a really good networking group.
Now, Abby, from a recruiter standpoint, have things changed a lot, especially in the last few months or so as things have started to open up? I mean, there's so many people that have lost jobs, but I'm sure there's jobs available, wouldn't you think?
Um, it's so weird because I have a job, I have a contract, and so I feel like a little removed from what's really going on. But this is what I'll tell you. I just was on the phone last night with someone from Minnesota that I used to speak for,
Hmm.
and that was a networking thing for me. So I am doing a lot of networking for myself because I'm looking for something new. And I've been doing a lot of virtual networking because people that I know are not in New Jersey, in Florida. Well, they're not in New Jersey and they're not in Florida. So, and he runs a group in Minnesota, and he used to get around 80 or to 100, 80 to 100 people there. And he said that they're back live and they're getting 20 people. So he's disappointed that there's not a lot of people coming back. Um, so he's not sure what to do. So he's probably going to stick with virtual for a while. He used to get a lot of people, right? So yeah, like a lot like Princeton, PSG, a lot like that, but even more. So yeah, so that's what I could tell you about networking. As far as what's changing, I feel like everybody is getting laid off. I feel like this is again where we were in March of 2020 with COVID. I'm interviewing candidates. A lot of people have been laid off. It's like a lot of that. That's
So,
what I think is happening. But
so,
I still think there are jobs. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of jobs and a lot of people being laid off. It's a
so let me
weird.
ask. So let me ask you this from a job seeker perspective. All these
Yeah.
people have lost jobs, and they do the open to work on LinkedIn, and they say, "I just lost my job. I need help. I need this and I need that." And as a recruiter, you probably see a lot of those types of posts on LinkedIn and everywhere else. Is there anything you could suggest to help someone kind of position themselves so that they're not just kind of throwing some stuff out to the wind?
Well, I mean, what I'm doing is what I would suggest other people do.
Hmm.
And that is, I would reach out to people individually that you used to work with, work for, and that's how I would start my networking, as opposed to putting it out there all over LinkedIn. I need help. I need help. I would be contacting people that you used to work with, people that you know. Literally, I would take your LinkedIn contacts, I would download them into a spreadsheet, and I would go through the spreadsheet. I would contact a certain number per day. I've been doing 5 a day because I have a job, so it's too hard to do more. And I would be reaching out to them and just saying, I just want to reconnect, see how you are. Not, I need a job.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to reconnect, see how you are. And you start talking to them. And I've discovered one person in my network needed a heart transplant. Another person in my network has cancer. And another person, who was the other person the other day, had something else. So, like, I'm finding out about all kinds of things, and I really care about that person. So when we reconnect, it goes from me, like I thought it was about me, but it turns out to be about them, which is fine. That's what networking is all about. It's about finding out how they're doing, like literally how are they doing, and that's what I would be doing as opposed to anything else.
No, as you mentioned, Abby, it's never about you really. It's about them when you
Right,
network. And really, asking for the job is the last thing you want to do when you
right,
you network. But it's
for
having
sure.
conversations with everyone on a regular basis that really helps you out. In that, your LinkedIn contacts, if you download them and start calling them and contacting them, that's fine. You also have your people in your networking groups who you might not have on LinkedIn. You have former business colleagues that you have, the people that you used to run into every day. Um, I generally have 6 people, 6 types of individuals that I try to keep in my network.
Mm-hmm.
And those are people in the banking industry, the bankers, the lawyers, the accountants, the insurance brokers, commercial insurance brokers, and commercial real estate brokers, and people in the technology business. And these are the individuals who really know what's going on in different companies, and especially in the small, medium sized organizations. Those 6 people are the ones who really could help you find your next position. So it's networking, networking, networking. It's a matter of making a list, so to speak, of all the people you know and who have you known in the past, and then start calling them and speaking with them and find out what's happening with them. And they're going to ask you, what's happening with you.
Mm-hmm.
And as a
Yeah, I see
result,
Chris has a question, which I think I know the answer to, Abby, but is the trend for interviewing gearing to Zoom and Teams interviews instead of in person. Would you agree with that?
It's better. I haven't done a live interview in since COVID. I used to go into the office. I used to commute for an hour and a half. I used to love the commute. I was working in Manhattan. I loved the train. And I did it for an hour and a half each way. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID hit. And the first thing that happened was I lost my job, essentially. I didn't lose my job. I lost my work. I lost the number of recs that I was trying to fill. So I went from 15 to 0. And then eventually that job came back. The recs came back. And I got another client. And I've done nothing but video interviews since then. So, yeah, it's definitely trending towards video interviews. Occasionally, the hiring managers want to meet the candidates live, but it's really occasional.
So our good friend Alex Freund would love to get both of your
Hi,
thoughts.
Alex.
Hi, for people to join a job search group in person, there must be a compelling reason to do that as long as there's an alternative to participate virtually. The in-person meetings will grow very slowly. What are your
Yes,
thoughts?
I agree. Marty, do you agree?
yeah, I agree on it. And that's people are experiencing this today, like your friend that you just mentioned. Okay, but I think although right now there's a tendency to continue on virtual, I just feel that people are going to move more and more towards in person. Okay. The issue, what I have seen is that there's definitely a convenience on doing it virtually. You don't have to travel to the location, right? And so, that's the easy part. But what happens is that once the meeting is over, it's over. Whereas if you have a live meeting and the time of the meeting is over, you still can continue networking with different people. And there's just this added benefit on being able to speak to individuals face to face that really make a difference. And to me, I think, that's really a tipping point and a big benefit of having the live meetings. What I have found in all the meetings that I run is that since we've gone virtual, there's a tendency, number one, to sign up for a meeting and then not show up. The other thing is that if you do attend it, leave early. And still, there are a lot of people who do not put their screen on so you could see who they are during these meetings. And when you think about it, when you're here networking and you're hiding behind a black screen, it's not the same as having the in-person, meetings.
I
That's
also
just
think
the way.
that the discussions I think we're doing are different in person. We were there last week, Marty, and I think our discussions were less about job search and more about mindset and things that aren't necessarily the way it used to be. It's just an opportunity to kind of brainstorm ideas as opposed to specifics. I mean, I don't know if you found that too or not.
No, I agree with you. That was a wonderful meeting we had, and I think by being live in person, we were able to change things on a dime, so to speak, and change the direction of what the discussions were all about. Where, if you have a bunch of people in the room, you could hear different, you know, opinions really quickly. And as a result of it, the subjects can change. Um, so there is definitely, in my mind, still a big benefit of having in-person meetings. But as Alex brings up, in his question, still, some people find it very, very convenient
Hmm.
to just stay in the house, put on their screen, the meeting's over, turn off the screen, and that's their networking for the week, so to speak.
Well, you
Um,
also say that networking. There's the word work is in networking. I
it
mean,
is.
if I only have 10 people showing up in person, I'm okay with that if the 10 people are there and they want to have a discussion. It may not be the way it was before, the 80 to 100 people at the Breakfast Club, and that's okay, because there's a benefit to it, but it's a risk reward. You have to decide for yourself if it's worth going or not. And that has to be a personal decision.
You know, as you said, you have to work at networking. Okay, it's the quality of the people that you have by meeting face to face than the quantity. Okay, I mean, I love both types of meetings. Um, However, I have found that when I have the live meetings, there are more what I consider upfront preparation for it, where I try to find out who's going to be there,
Hmm.
okay, uh, somewhat what their background's all about, especially about meeting new people and things that I might want to find out as I'll call it work the room. Um, there's just this extra energy when you have the in-person meetings and so many different options. I feel by being live at these meetings.
So, Abby,
That's just
I got a question for you. Abby, you did your job search call, career wake up call, recently. Did you find anything new or different from previous wake up calls?
you muted.
You're muted. Unmute, unmute, unmute.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm muting because there's traffic going by my house, as you can see.
Okay.
Um, the difference is that the 99 others we did as a teleconference. The 100th we did as a Zoom call, because I felt like doing another teleconference would be like going back into the dark ages.
Mm-hmm.
So it was much different. We maxed out. We had over 100 people that wanted to get on, and only 100 people could get on. So now we upgraded the number of people. So now 500 can get on for our next one. But so I guess what's different is the Zoom. It's different because now I can see everybody. But it's not different for me because I've been doing Zoom and video interviews since COVID started. So it's just like having more friends in the room.
So
That's
then I
all it
think,
is.
so Sue Griffey, who Sue and I are part of Brenda Miller's VI marketing group, go-to people, as well as Abby. I think we need to stop. Think we need to think about what's going to bring the newer workforce members into in-person events, especially those who haven't done in-person networking. And I think, as you and I, as Marty, we had someone last week who was probably
A
21,
young 'un.
a young,
Young.
and he was there, and I was, I don't want to say I felt old, but it was great to see someone of that age there and being able to be there. And I think one of the things you said, which is really relevant, is that the best thing you can do is listen when you go to one of these events, for sure.
Yeah, there was a very interesting scenario, so to speak, and watching what was going on. And most of the meeting consisted of people who had been networking for a while, and they knew each other, or they knew what networking was all about. And this young gentleman, he joined us, and he wanted, he was sitting there pretty quietly, and we were all talking about different things. And then someone mentioned, well, you have to have a good elevator pitch to do networking. And I saw he had this strange look on his face, and the conversation continued. And I just said, could we just stop for a moment? And I turned to him and I said, do you know what an elevator pitch is? And he said, no. And so the dynamics, it became a very instructional meeting for this individual who, I have to say, I think he gained a lot of knowledge from the meeting. And subsequently, he's already linked in with me, and we've had some discussions on, what he has to do to network, on how to network. So, those are the things that you will get when you go to the live meetings, which
So
may
this
not.
brings up the question that we were talking about before. Any tips for icebreakers, maintaining the conversation tools? I'm awkward at conversation. That in many cases, we've talked about the multiple elevator pitches and how do you get going. I'm as awkward at having a conversation as anyone else, and it's the old "tell me about yourself." So, Marty, what would you suggest? Or Abby? Well, Abby, go ahead, Abby.
No, I wasn't raising my hand to speak. I was raising my hand to agree with you.
Okay.
I hate it. I hate it. I'm an introvert, total introvert at heart. And I mean, for me, all right. So for me, I have to just say hello. Who was I talking to yesterday? And I said, just say hello. Oh, I know. It was my niece. My niece is in college and she's finding it really hard to make friends. So I said, you just have to start. She's a big introvert. I said, you just have to walk up to someone and say hello, because the person's going to say hello back, unless they're like in the middle of like Manhattan. And then maybe not. But she's in the middle of school in Pittsburgh. I said, you just have to say hello, and they'll say hello back. And then you could pick something. One thing that I do that works really well for me is I find something to compliment about the person. Like, Ken, that's a really cool blue shirt. It matches my car. Literally. So, and if you walk up to someone and say, I like your blue shirt, it matches my car, they're not going to just sit there and stare at you. They're going to respond. And then that starts the conversation. And then they might say, well, I have a green car. Or they might ask me what kind of car it is. And then I'll go into the story about how I chose my car. And So I think complimenting someone is a really good first move. Marty, what do you think?
Yeah.
No, that's a good icebreaker. Um, what I always look at is that, to ask questions that cannot be answered by either yes or no. And these are simple questions like, what brings you to this event? How do you feel about the subject matter that we're talking about? The old one, well, tell me what you do
I
when
mean,
you're not at these meetings.
this week was good for us because we could all talk about sports um, for a little while. I think what's a little bit challenging is, and it happens to all of us. You go to a stranger the first time, and it's like, who's going to say what to whom and how, and how do I get started? And sometimes there's the look like I don't want you to see me, or what's going on. I mean, and sometimes it's so. I almost laugh about it now, a little bit, because I remember I was that wallflower for so
Yeah.
long. And I think, Abby,
It,
I said to you, we should come. We should go as a networking together sometime, because
Oh,
that way we have
totally. You did say
someone to
that.
talk to. We can
Yes, you
talk to
totally
each
said
other.
that.
Right.
But I also think that that person is probably wishing that someone will come over and talk to them.
most
So they
definitely.
are so grateful that you said anything to them. Thrilled. Hmm. Yeah.
The in doing that, you especially if you go to live meetings, you really have to be observant what's going on.
Hmm.
Um, I had a situation. This is years ago. I went to this live meeting, and I'm looking around the room, and I see in the back someone like what you just mentioned, Ken, person standing by himself, and I could see that just wanted somebody to come over and say hello. Okay, and so I went
Hmm.
over, went to say hello, told him I'm Marty Latman, and you are. And we had a conversation. He was in transition, and I said, "Come on, let's come talk to other people." And I brought him back into the group. We had a whole bunch of good conversations, and I asked him, what type of work he does, and he told me and what he was looking for. And it just so happens that he was in the marketplace, and my brother-in-law hired him as a result of our meeting. So you
Oh,
never know
wow.
what's going to happen. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I got some stories, but anyway, yeah. The thing was that you know he. I think personally, most people are introverts. I really think so, and most people who go to these networking events really do not want to go to them. They're somewhat forced to go there.
Yep.
And when you think about it, if everyone's at the meeting who doesn't really want to be there, we all have something in common. And when you have something in common, then you can have a nice conversation and play on that. And what brings you to this event? It's a simple thing. You know, networking. Networking is not very difficult. We all learned it, and I always tell people we learned this when we were in kindergarten. And the teacher would tell, Mary to play with Susan, and Susan to play with Jimmy, and Jimmy to play with Johnny. And we all did all these things. And then as we started growing up, the walls came up, and then we got really introverted, and we kept to ourselves. Um, so we know how to network. It's just a matter of practicing it and going out and try it. You go out and you shake someone's hand. Today, I don't know if you do that anymore, but when you do it, you're not going to lose any fingers. You're still going to have 5 fingers after you finish. So um, greet everybody, treat people the way you want to be treated. Okay. Listen, observe, and find out about different people. Ask the questions. And then when you do that, you start developing, relationships. And that's what it's all about.
And as Joey says here, network with the people you already know, then meet and talk with other people, your mechanic, your hairstylist, doctors. When I was in transition, any place I went to that I felt comfortable having a conversation, I would. I mean, it wasn't not a person on the street, but when I tell this story too, when I was out in 2008, I was the only PTO dad there because dads never volunteered at the PTO. And I got on a committee there, but it was just great networking, just feeling comfortable doing something. And you realize after a while, when you're in a safe place, it makes a difference. That's why you go and 100 people. It's like, oh my God, where do I even start? And it can be very overwhelming. But, you know, I remember the first time I met Abby. I don't know if she remembers. It was in 2008. And I'd heard all about her, and I was scared to death to go up and introduce myself. Same with you, Marty, and the same with Alex. You guys, you don't realize how scary it is when you know who someone is and you wonder if they're going to reject you or not.
Well, I think maybe I oversimplify it, but I look at it and say, most people want to talk to other people, and generally, the higher they are in different positions, when you really look at it, the main reason they are up there isn't so much that they're that smart. It's just that they have very good people skills and they become very friendly with people. It's the likability factor that really helps in
As
advancing.
Alex says, you have to feel good about yourself. You have to feel good about who you are. Once I realized who I was and I could call myself an introvert and knew what I was all about, it made life a lot easier because I had a name. I was able to call myself something. And people in transition don't feel good. I push for, like, I think a lot of us that do push out. We form a group of job search, an accountability group of those of us in transition. We all kind of help each other out. But I actually, for the first time in a very long time, had a pity party for myself last night. And it had nothing to do with anything related to job search, but pity parties are sometimes just what you need to get up and go again.
You know, being in transition, it's not a fun time. There's a lot of uncertainty. Um, Generally, everyone's in situation generally when they know what they're going to be doing, et cetera, and then all of a sudden things are uncertain. And when you're uncertain, that's when you worry. You put a lot of stress on yourself, and so it's not a real good place to be. However, in doing that, what I have found, as I tell a lot of people, you're all going to get jobs. As long as you keep on working at it, you'll all land. It's just a question of when. And number two, being in transition, there is a benefit to it in several things. Number one, you meet a lot of people because you do a lot of networking. But more so, you get to know who you are. There's a lot of soul searching. And when you do that, you really get to know what you're all about, your strengths and things that you're not that strong about. And as a result of it, you come out of being in transition a much stronger and better person. You have an appreciation for those people who have been in transition, and hopefully that carries over when you started hiring people. But at the same time, you really got to know who you are, and you know how strong you are as you go through transition. It's only temporary. Okay.
Abby, this one is going to be for you.
Wait, I have to say something first.
Okay.
Can we stop calling it in transition? Can we call it in between successes?
That's what I always call it.
I didn't make that up. I did not make that up. I don't know who did, but that's what we need to call it. In transition, it's so.
Brenda calls it enthusiastically employable. So I happen to like that.
What does she call it?
She calls it enthusiastically employable.
I like that too. That's awesome. Don't call it in transition anymore. Can we stop doing that?
Yeah.
Bleh.
So, any tips from being in a major career transition, healthcare to legal, without legal experience?
Okay, so So there's a few things. The first thing I would do is perhaps take some courses to prove to people that you really want to do this new thing, because just saying you want to do it and doing it is not. Wait, I'm just distracted by the fact that Ken, you have a Giants jersey on. I just saw that.
I'm sorry, you're a Jets fan, right?
No. We were rooting for the Giants last night. We were totally. And I'm
Even
not
though
a Jets fan. I'm a Dolphins fan, and we know
really,
what happened there.
Yeah, we
But
know what happened
we
there.
know what happened there.
okay, let me
I
get
wonder.
back.
Yeah.
I kept looking at the jersey. All right, sorry.
Hmm.
So, where's that person? I forgot where he is.
I can call it up
Anyway,
again.
yeah. Okay. So I would recommend that. Hi, Dan. I would recommend that you take a class or two. I remember this woman who was like 90 years old, just way up there, 80 or 90, really on the older side, and never didn't act anything like that. And then went to college. She wanted to become a forensic something or other. She went to college, took some forensic courses, and ended up getting a job in forensics at like 80 years old or whatever she was at Amazon. I'm not kidding. That's really true. It's a true story. So, take some courses to prove that you're really interested in the legal field. Talk to people in the legal field, go to conferences in the legal field, learn about the terminology in the legal field, so that when people say something about uh, regulatory, you know what they're talking about. Those are a few tidbits. I'm sure Marty can add a few others.
No, I think you've highlighted the main ones. I mean, it's a matter of getting to know the lingo that the lawyers use and the reason, what it really means. It's
Right.
hanging out with them at these different conferences and different networking groups. It's a matter of getting the technical skills by getting the education related to the field. At the same time, in going um, through this, what you also want to do, okay, is that you want to look at the competitors in the field. So you want to understand the industry, what's happening in the industry, and the latest developments, so to speak, in that industry. So you could converse with other people, even though you're not there yet, but that you could be part of the conversation. And that's what I would add. Plus, obviously you want to network with the people in that industry.
I think between you, Brenda, and you, Abby, I think the idea of calling yourself enthusiastically employable or between successes is a mindset thing as much as anything else. Because when you say you're in transition or unemployed, there's such
Right.
a
Alex
negative.
said unemployed. Alex
Alex,
reminded us that we started saying in transition because we used to call it unemployed.
right.
So blah, no more of those.
So and
Um,
that's part of a mindset because it's true. And my thing is when you lose a job, you haven't lost your skills, you haven't lost your abilities, you've just lost a place that you're going to, which is hard, but it's not the end all.
You got to
so
be positive
yeah,
all the time.
Dan said, can you volunteer at an office? So a for-profit company is not allowed to hire volunteers. Nonprofit companies allowed to, but some for-profit companies don't know the law, so they might take you. You never know. But the thing is, if you want to get into legal, I would assume they know the law. I would hope they know the law. But maybe you could
Intern.
also read about stuff, intern, right? Just ask them if you could intern. And everyone has seen by now the movie The Intern, right? That's what it was
Yes.
called?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not everyone has seen it, but a lot of people have seen it. And maybe they would consider hiring you. But you have to be networking in, like, you have to have somebody that's a friend. So it's all about LinkedIn again. It's about networking through LinkedIn to find people that you know that work at an office that you want to work
And the
for.
other thing I say is if you don't tell someone on your profile that you're looking for a job, there are so many profiles out there that have a current job that I don't know if it's current or not. I understand why people do it, but don't assume people know you're looking for a job. There's different ways to do that, but I'm sure, I guess I don't know if you do searches, Abby, when you do like in transition or anything like that. But so I would ask you from a recruiter standpoint, how do you search for people on
I search for people just by keywords and titles and locations. And then I get jazzed when I see somebody that has the open to work button. Makes me very excited because I know that they're going to be happy when I reach out to them. So that makes me happy when I see it.
Marty, you're quiet. That's so unusual.
Wow. You know, look, when you're in between successes, okay, the best thing to do is surround yourself with people, and it could be people who are also in between successes, but also people who are employed. Okay. You do not want to be alone during this period of time. And I know when I try to help people in the leads that I get, the biggest thing that I want to make sure is that when I get their paperwork, or when they get ready to submit their paperwork, it they try to match it up to what the job specs say. All right. And that, you know, I've always said that you need a resume that is tailored to the job spec, which means you need multiple resumes. Too many people, number one, in putting together their resume, it looks like a job description and doesn't show how they've added value to companies. The other situation is that it really doesn't address the specs that are out there for the job. And so therefore, if you're looking for the position, number one, ask yourself, is this a position that I would hire myself for? And be honest with yourself. And if you said, yes, it is, then put together the paperwork that would substantiate that you are a qualified candidate for.
All
And
right,
that's how I would
Abby.
look at it.
How do you let LinkedIn recruiters know that you're looking for a change without letting your current employer know that you're looking?
I hate that. Okay, I'm off mute. So one thing I wanted to say before I answer this question is people that wanted to go work down on Wall Street used to go to the bars after work because that's where all the Wall Street people used to go. And that's how they used to meet people to network with. Just wanted to throw that in. And then, Bill, you can't put the open to work button on your LinkedIn if you are working, but you can go into the LinkedIn job section and say that you're looking. And then LinkedIn says, we promise to try to not show your employer that you're looking. But they say there's no guarantee. But hopefully they're not going to show the recruiters at your current company that you're saying that you're open to work. So you have to have a really good story just in case they come up to you and they say, oh, we see that you're open to work. And I think the good story is, oh, yeah, that's what I used to have. Let me shut that off. What else are you going to say? I used to have that when I was looking the last time. Oops, I'll shut that off.
I think no. So here again, how do you let people know you're in career and transition of a new role? How do you let people know you're? So as for me, I'm trying to get into human resources. I think it really comes down to this: you have to portray your LinkedIn profile in such a way that it's it looks good for the person who wants to hire you. I think the challenge is that most people also don't engage on LinkedIn. And I think that's such a missed opportunity. If you're looking to do something in a certain industry and you find an article of interest or a post of interest and you comment on that, you just never know who you're going to be able to connect with on that post. I've made some of my greatest connections by commenting on the same post as them because you have that in common. And I think, you know, that for me is probably the best advice I can give on top of anything related to networking. As an introvert, I know you may be afraid of what's going to come out there, but start putting content out there. What's the worst thing that can happen is that no one will see it.
And you have to be your own promoter. You really do. Okay. With LinkedIn, there's small things you could do every day. They have a situation, if you look at it, people's work anniversaries, people's birthdays,
Sure.
People's promotions. Okay. I would be looking at that every day, and it might take you maybe 10 minutes to go through that, to start connecting with those people, or just wish them a happy, whatever it is. And they get to know you. Or you could be like Ken, the rock star over here, and post everything out there. And, for an introvert, he's pretty extroverted. I could tell you that on what he's posting everything. But, it's a matter of getting noticed. And that's really what it's all about. And there are many ways to do it, but you have to comment. Okay. Don't necessarily just hit the like button on these conversations. Write something. Comment. Show people that you're thinking. Okay. And when you do that, people start recognizing you, and that you're, you have a leadership group. That's what it's all about.
I'm going to end the call with this, with Marty's favorite two words. Should I, or should I not use the open to work banner on my LinkedIn profile? And what are the two words that we always say in networking, Marty?
It
depends.
It depends. There is no one right or wrong answer for any of this. So if you take nothing away from this call or this conversation, you'll know that every situation is different. So I want to thank Marty and Abby very, very much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Alex Freund will be on next week, and then Brenda Miller will be on the week after. So please stay tuned. Have a great day, everyone. And we'll talk soon. Bye.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.